Welcome to the Scale Smart podcast. I'm your host, Jacob, the CEO and founder of Let's Go Growth. Today, I'm here with Justin Langley, the CEO of BeMyApp. Justin, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jacob.
So, Justin, tell me, who's Justin and what did BeMyApp do?
Yeah, so I started at BeMyApp 10 years ago. So I'm hitting the age where I can start using the decade term, which is pretty cool. I started as a project manager. I was really interested in what BeMyApp did. I think it speaks to the innovation side of me and the creativity side of me. And so that's what got me interested in BeMyApp in the first place. And I had never heard of a hackathon beforehand. I wasn't familiar with the dev relations space. But once I started, I actually told my CEO at my interview he probably shouldn't hire me and he would save a bunch of money if he didn't, because I'm just going to start working for him anyway, because I'm so excited about the opportunity and what we do have BeMyApp. And thankfully that worked and got him to hire me, so I get paid for what I do. But yeah, it's been a journey for me to go from project management to leading and managing a team to now taking over and managing the company. BeMyApp, we are a developer relations agency, which kind of sounds like a mouthful, but primarily what we do is we run developer events and marketing programs to engage developer communities, to create demand generation for companies, to um, uh, build user adoption, to drive signups, to hit their KPIs of developers trained on their tech and tools. So, what we do is we find clients who want to scale their operations, whether it's their community manager operations, their developer relations operations, their marketing. And then we put in a program to run an event, which our bread and butter would be a hackathon. And we do those in person, we do those virtually, we do them all over the world. We have offices in the US, we have offices in Europe. We've been doing it globally for about 15 years now. And we've gotten to work with a lot of the Fortune 500 companies, a lot of the Fortune 50 companies, everyone who has tech and a product that they want to get out there into the hands of developers, get developers building use cases, giving them feedback, working on their technology. And, I kind of think of it as back when the iPhone was launched and everyone needed an app. There were developers in their mom's basements who were coding an app because it was a gold rush. If you built an app that took off, you were going to make a bunch of money. So that model is kind of the tech model, right? Is just get your product out there into the people who use it and crowdsource building cool things. And from that, you will create demand for your product. You will create new use cases that you never would have thought of. So it's a really fun, cutting edge, innovative world to be working in.
Let's just kickstart the podcast as well. You've gone from being the project manager to the managing director, and now obviously just newly promoted to CEO. So congratulations on that. How are you going to take this different approach going up the ranks of the company? What's going to be your main focus and your main drive to drive the company forward now you're in the CEO role?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that I'll probably be trying to answer every day and figure out. It's a whole new world to be in, and having a focus on building the brand and the marketing of the company, growing the sales team, and growing the opportunities that we have to work with new clients. I think right now, having this background in production and running the marketing, the operations, the project management of the company, I have a really good understanding of how we run these events and how we exceed the expectations and the goals that our clients have with these events that they run with us. So now my main focus is how do I continue to create these new relationships with new clients, all along the way, innovating with whatever new tech comes out? Because as you can imagine, when a new technology comes out, that's when everyone wants to work on it. That's when everyone wants to build something new, right? When AI came out, there was no use cases. There was just, hey, here's this thing that can do so much. What can you do with it? And then we have to ride that wave, and we have to be first on that wave. So a lot of the responsibility of the CEO at BeMyApp is looking ahead to the horizon and what's coming out and finding ways to run events and create demand around that new technology. Sometimes it works out. AI has been hugely popular. Everyone wants to do things with AI. Sometimes it doesn't work out. NFTs, I don't know if you got into NFTs at all. A lot of people did. That was a quick peak and a quick fall off. And so you really never know where things are, what's going to get adopted, where technology is going to go. But in the innovation space, what's cool is you're always trying something new. You're always throwing paint at the wall and seeing what sticks. So my role is going to be continuing to look for those opportunities, continuing to look for new ways to connect with developers, to connect with the companies that want to build their communities and run these types of events. And it's there's no script to follow. I think that's what's cool about what we do here is, if you could follow a script, we would just program a computer to do it. And so what we need to do is every day think on our feet, do something new, adapt, figure out what works, and just kind of stay agile and stay in this startup mindset.
And you mentioned something like at the very start of the podcast as well, which I just want to touch upon, where you said like I'm going to be working for the company no matter what because I just love what you guys do. And I think there's a saying where if you love what you do, you'll never work a day of your life. And I think when you're so obsessed with your craft and you're so engaged with what you do, it doesn't feel like work. You don't get up and you feel like, oh, I've got to go to work today, or I've got to get this task done. Because when you love it so much and you're so obsessed with it, it's just like a normality. So do you feel having that kind of feeling towards the company made you want to? What I'm trying to say is, did you have in mind when you started as a project manager to then become the CEO?
I think for me, I've always had this innate need to achieve. I've always wanted to improve myself, and the best thing that someone could tell me is that I couldn't do something, because then it gave me motivation to prove them wrong. So I've always had this thought when I'm working with my managers and my mentors of how I could do something better than them. Now, that might be a narcissistic view of the world, but I think you have to have a little bit of that inside of you to drive yourself and push forward. Now, there's always so much to be learned from your coaches and mentors, but that's kind of the goal of society, is to step into someone else's shoes and try and do better than them. So, did I ever know that like CEO was possible at a small company? No. But did I always try and prove myself to have the skills, the experience, the ability, the leadership to be able to do that? Yes, I think so. And that might have been naive when I first started, but once you really spend a lot of time with one company and you learn the ins and outs, and you build a team around you that constantly brings you ideas for improvement, and you get the opportunity to put those ideas into place. It's very exciting. And once you get the opportunity, you start to remember all those things over the last year, all the things that you wanted to do, all the things that you wanted to try, all the ways that you wanted to run it. It's life has a few opportunities that come up, and you just have to take those opportunities as they come, because you never know when they're going to come again. So I think I never pictured myself being in this position until recently, but I've always pictured myself being in a position of leading the company. So I think that's what helped drive me to get to the point of being ready to.
Obviously, we spoke about AI before. I want to carry on talking a little bit about AI. So with AI and with automation, I think it's rapidly increasing, and it's rapidly advancing as well. So how are you at BeMyApp constantly adapting to these new things coming out and making sure you're not kind of getting left behind and you're always keeping up with the emerging technology which is coming out constantly?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's twofold for us. It's what can we do internally at our company, and how do we innovate and use AI to make our processes more efficient, to cut down on costs, to be able to do more with less. But then there's also, how do we understand how AI can help our clients and help our community of developers? So on the internal side, we've got to try things, right? And the beauty of being an agency is we don't have all these websites that are blocked, right? You go into a big corporation and they're trying to write some copy, and you're like, oh, have you tried plugging into ChatGPT? And they're like, haha, good joke. Like, I could never open up ChatGPT on my computer. But for us, we don't have those roadblocks in place. So when a new technology comes out and new tools come out, we just jump on it, right? You got to play with them. You got to download them. You got to use them. You got to get an understanding of it, so that you have that firsthand experience when you're talking to your clients, because the client might be in the same position where they see AI as a really cool opportunity for their employees, but they've never used it before. So having that experience of using it and knowing how it worked for you internally, you can then impart that onto your client and use that as a way to convince them that doing some programs and bringing AI into their company is going to help them with those, some of those benefits that AI brings because you've done it and you've seen it. So there's that aspect of it, but then there's also the aspect of finding clients who are building cool things with AI and using what they've built to generate demand for other clients that want to do the same thing. So there's a little bit of duplication out there where you can showcase what other clients have done with AI and say, hey, we can come in, we can help you to do the same thing that they've done and seen the same results that they've seen. And the beauty of being an agency is we don't have to be the expert in one thing, because there's so many tools, there's so many processes, there's so much to work with out there that it would be impossible to say that we're an expert in every one thing. But we need to be knowledgeable about the trend and about the value proposition of the trend so that we can speak to it with our clients, so that we have a passing knowledge of the technology and how it can work and how they can utilize it. Now, what they actually do with it, what they actually build, that's the beauty of the kind of events that we do, is it's up to them. We're not coming into a client saying, hey, if you do A plus B, it's going to equal C. It's like, hey, we're going to do A, B is a question mark, C is a question mark, but you get to be the one who decides what that question mark is, and you get to bring your own ideas and your own vision into it.
And for the people listening as well, because you mentioned previously about a hackathon. For people listening and for people who aren't familiar what a hackathon is, will you just explain it a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. So a hackathon comes from hacking and marathon. So the idea is combining a hackathon, a hack marathon into a hackathon. So that's like how the word came about. And the idea is crowdsourcing ideas from either your own internal people or external people, bringing them together for an event. Used to be a weekend event filled with Red Bull, filled with empty coffee cups, filled with hands-on coding, writing code, writing specific languages. And you start with a challenge and you work your way over a weekend of, hey, here's the challenge, here's my idea, here's how I'm going to build it. Now let me build an MVP and let me pitch it Shark Tank style to these judges. And the judges tell me which idea they think is the best and which idea they want to invest in. And in the case of a hackathon, you win a prize pool. So the benefit for participants is they get to come and they get to learn something new. They get to build something cool. They get to network with others, their peers, the clients that come to the event, and then they get to possibly win prize money. So that's what drives people to want to be a part of this. Now, especially since COVID, hackathons have gone virtual global. So if you think about how important diversity of thought is when you are building something and you're creating something new and creating solutions, when you can bring in a global scale of people who have ideas, who have creativity, who have skills that you wouldn't be able to come up with on your own, and you bring them into a virtual event where they can collaborate, and you have someone from France who's coding with someone from the US and someone in Africa who has the idea, the whole global scale gets to come together to build something. And it allows for a lot more people to participate. It allows for a lot more ideas to be pitched. And it just allows us to scale these events to be bigger than they've ever been before. We even had a client that we ran a hackathon with that is listed in the Guinness World Records for the most people participating in a hackathon because of the global scale that we're able to bring. At BeMyApp, we have a virtual platform for collaborating, for registration, for creating your projects, for connecting with mentors, for watching webinars. And so we were able to utilize that to really scale the number of hackathons that we do and the number of people that can join our hackathons and do it on a virtual scale. And actually, fun fact for you, Jacob, I don't know if you know this or your listeners know this, but the very first hackathon was run by Facebook. it was an internal hackathon, and the idea of the like button was pitched at the hackathon and then implemented, and the like button actually came from the first hackathon.
Wow, I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And what strategies would you say have worked the best when it comes to helping the larger enterprises turn these hackathons into actually some real world solutions?
The beauty of the hackathon and bringing people in and bringing their ideas and pitching them is that you are now have a direct connection with the person who thought of that idea and built that idea. So you don't have to go out and find someone any longer. They're right in front of you. You're bringing the talent to you and you're working directly with them. A lot of our clients are bringing mentors and judges to the hackathon who are working hand in hand with these teams. So the clients are being able to make those connections and they can continue on with their project with the participants that showed up at the hackathon, or they might be inspired by being at the hackathon. So teams built a use case of something that is interesting to them, something that maybe they want to spin off and put as part of their roadmap and build themselves. So they might just be getting the ideas for the product and for use cases from the hackathon, and then they can put a plan in place internally to build that.
And moving away from the hackathons now and looking more in the industry, what are some of the trends and what winds do you think are blowing when it comes to the industry? Obviously, I know AI being a massive one, but is there anything else which you can see really which is shaping the industry to what it is today?
Yeah, I think what's new is that everyone is using some component of technology within their company. Before, it was the tech companies that were running hackathons because they had open APIs, they had SDKs, they had IDEs, they had the tools out there for people to build with. But now, even companies that were started in the 1920s who have gone through digital transformation to bring technology into their company have open APIs, have tools that developers can build with. So the spectrum of clients that can take advantage of this type of an event and this type of format with hackathons is much broader. It's not just Google and Facebook who are doing hackathons. It's banks, it's healthcare, it's finance. Technology has been the connector across the world and across all companies because if you don't continue to innovate and you don't continue to digitally transform and bring technology into your company, then you're going to fall behind. And so the trends that I'm seeing is that the clients that we get to work with are on a much broader spectrum, and we're able to do hackathons that are leveraging a technology solution for a problem that might not have been technology driven. For example, we've done some hackathons with foundations that are focused on rare diseases, and you might not think right up front like, oh, how can an app help someone with a rare disease? But when you bring in all the data science, all of the AI, machine learning into the scientific process, now you can start to see how solutions using technology can drive solutions for non-technical problems. And with the rise of AI, that's just been exponential because it's so much easier to integrate technology into your company and into your products and services because you no longer need to hire a boiler room of coders who are writing JavaScript from day until night. You can implement sort of a turnkey or prepackaged solution and tweak it for your specific needs. So I think the trends of technology sort of infiltrating and integrating into everyone's everyday life means there's more companies and more people working with technology that can marry that into creating and generating these solutions.
And you made a good point there about being left behind. What are some of the things you guys are doing at BeMyApp to make sure you're not being left behind?
I would say constantly coming up with new event formats and new deliverables within our products to meet these needs of the client. When a client has a question about what's possible and what they can do, we're not stuck to a format that is um, that is rigid, and we're not selling the same event that we sold in 2015 or 2020 or even 2023. Every time we meet with a client and we dive into their specific needs and their specific goals, we are able to tailor and customize the event strategy and the program to meet their needs. And so for us, it's all about adapting to our client needs, because at the end of the day, as an agency, it's all about your clients, and it's all about keeping pace with them. So I would credit a lot of our ability to keep up with what our clients bring down to us and saying, hey, this is something that I need. Is this something you can do? And then us being flexible and saying, like, yeah, let's try it. Right. I think what's cool about being in a startup mindset and in an agile agency is that you're not afraid to fail and you can move quickly. And so when a client brings you this idea, instead of turning it down and being afraid that you can't do it, it's sort of a blind ambition of, we can figure out a way to make that work. And through that, you learn a lot, and by learning, you're growing, and by growing, you're continuing to adapt and keep from falling behind.
And just lastly, Justin, obviously now the CEO of the company, what are some of the goals you've got for the next 12 months?
It's a good question. Yeah, so I think the goals for our next 12 months is to find some new avenues of working with AI, working with the technologies that are coming about. We see that quantum computing and quantum chips are on the horizon. And so finding a way to work with clients on get ahead of the curve there and figure out what kind of events and what kind of use cases can be built with the new technologies that are coming out. Finding ways to work with clients with the popular technologies and that exist now, like AI and AI agents. I think you mentioned at one point you're working with someone who's doing AI agents, and so I think a big goal for us is to continue to find new clients that are interested in these new technologies that are coming out and how they can use them. I think it's an interesting question for us to think about 12 months out, because the furthest runway we can usually see out is about 2 or 3 months, because that's how fast technology is changing. So while we might have an idea for where we want to be in 12 months or what we want to do at the end of the year, by then something new could hit the market that could change everything, and we pivot. So, you know, finding ways to innovate our events is another thing that I'm really interested in. We have a client who is very open to new ideas and new event formats, and I think something that you've seen firsthand is how popular these content snippets of tools and technology are, and how big the influencer world is getting, and many how people are really interested in watching and learning from others. And at a hackathon, you have a team who goes off, and they're in a closed loop working together, and you don't get to see what they're building and how they're building it. And I think the future of some of these hackathon events is getting to see how people are building things and having sort of that streaming model where you're watching someone build, you're learning how they're going from an idea into a fully baked solution, and expanding beyond a 3-minute clip of how you can use ChatGPT to build an HTML brick breaker app, right? Because like you'll see those clips all the time, and nobody needs an HTML brick breaker app, right? That was cool back in the 90s on a cell phone. That's a very limited use case. But what about a use case that takes 8 hours to build? How are they actually solving and creating something brand new that's never been done before, that can't just be easily scripted by a computer? So I think in the future we're going to see more events that are about the coding process, the AI building process, because in the past coding was all about how much of the language you've memorized and how much of that language you can type out yourself. But now a lot of people can build things with no code, low code tools, but they want to learn and see how people are doing that. They don't just want the end product. They want to know all the parts in the middle of how they're actually using those tools and how they're actually putting everything together. So I think that's kind of an ambitious goal of mine, is to find an event format that exists where it's sort of like esports meets a hackathon, and you're getting to be involved in the process. You're not just seeing the challenge statement and seeing the solution, you're seeing how the bread is made and everything in between.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing them goals. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Justin, to finish off, if someone wanted to reach out and find out more, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website, bmyapp.com. We also own and operate hackathon.com. So anyone who is searching for dev relations or scaling their community growth or their demand generation, or is looking to run an event like a hackathon or virtual conference, meetups, webinar series, developer studies, just reach out either directly to one of us, Justin at BeMyApp, or going to bmyapp.com or hackathon.com and looking at our services and submitting an inquiry so that we can connect with you and talk about what it is you're looking for.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Justin. I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights.
Thank you very much for having me, Jacob.
It's been a pleasure. If you enjoyed the podcast today with Justin, make sure to leave it a like. Check out Justin and hackathon.com and BeMyApp.com if you're interested. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.